Hi, I'm sorry I can't be with you tonight. I'm speaking elsewhere on fire and rehire. I'm against it. But that's part of the same broad subject of income security. And if we had a proper minimum income guarantee, the change in negotiating power would see the elimination of exploitative work practices. It's always difficult going last because other great speakers in the lineup have probably covered everything, and it's even harder on video because I can't build on their contributions. So if I do repeat something, then obviously it's true. This report is great. Well done to the authors. Its arguments are sound and concise. It covers the points in detail, and it's short and easy to read. So doubly well done considering it's written by academics. The best thing about it is it picks some numbers and it runs with them. UBI is too often discussed in the abstract, and this report addresses that key question of viability. In fact, at its heart there are two objections to universal basic income. One, the economic question, is it affordable? And two, the philosophical question, it's money for nothing. Now, in politics and in public discourse, evidence is only half the battle. You've got to convince people it's a good thing before they'll even look at the evidence. So is it really money for nothing? You know, like the Dire Straits song, your money for nothing and your chicks for free. When my wife and I do the shopping and put food on the table for our kids, we don't keep a tally of how much they owe us. We just know that to grow up healthy and capable, they'll need food and warmth and shelter, and books and toys and transport. In other words, a decent standard of living. And I don't expect them to pay it back. I expect them to pay it forwards by contributing to society, perhaps in time looking after their kids as my parents looked after me. But when we build public roads or cycleways, we don't tally exactly who's used them and when. We see them as a public good. With the NHS, you don't get a rebate if you're lucky enough to stay healthy. And if you're rich, you don't need a basic income. Well, that's good for you. But let's be clear. Nobody gets rich on their own. Nobody. If you're getting rent from property, someone else is earning the money to pay that. If you're getting dividends, other people are producing those profitable goods and services. They're moving goods to market on roads the rest of us paid for. They're hiring workers the rest of us paid to educate. Their businesses are safe because of police and fire services we fund collectively. They don't have to worry that marauding bandits will come and seize their Aston Martins and their holiday homes. The rich have always had unearned income. It's been that way for centuries. So if you can be born into a family who'll set you up with a flat, pay your university fees, buy you a car, give you a little trust fund, all by accident of birth, then why shouldn't everyone benefit from getting a share of national wealth just by right of being born? But is UBI really money for nothing? Or is it money to empower people? We know beyond all doubt that if you start out poor, you'll struggle to escape poverty. Your health will be worse. Your educational attainment will be lower. You'll have fewer contacts in positions of influence. Your lifetime income will be lower. But when we invest in people, they become happier, healthier, more productive, better educated. They'll look after their homes better because they can afford to. They'll spend less time in hospital, and they'll earn more and pay more tax. It's a virtuous circle. A bit of financial security empowers people to take care of themselves. After he left the army, my dad worked in the same job for 30 years. He was a shift worker at ICI. My eldest son has just done his GCSEs. He'll reach state pension age in 2074. Half the jobs he'll do in his career probably don't even exist yet. How do we educate our children to take their place in that future, given we don't even know what will happen with our economy next year? Well, we can't. So what we need to do is give people a basic income so they can retrain, and the freedom and the flexibility to do it arranged around their work and their childcare and other caring responsibilities. UBI would massively empower women in particular, which is something that's long overdue. We'd see people of ordinary means more able to start up micro businesses. UBI dovetails with universal free education for life, and that means an end to tuition fees. In fact, the evidence from UBI pilots around the world showed that people didn't work less, except for two groups. Teenagers were less likely to go into low-paid work and instead spend more time on their education. And mothers spent less time in part-time work and spent more time with their very young children. And I'd love to think that dads would take time off to look after their young kids too. So it's not money for nothing. It's money to improve yourself and your skills and your health and your family life and your earning potential. And society benefits from all those things. So that's the money for nothing argument dealt with. Well, how do we pay for it? That's where this report really shines. It uses an established tax transfer model to show that a decent level of basic income at £628 a month leads to a net benefit for all but the wealthiest. And the report emphasises that this is a static calculation, a snapshot of what happens today without factoring in the long-term benefits of economic change. And there's a list of alternative ways to raise the money beyond income tax. It mentions a wealth tax where individuals with financial assets over £1 million pay 1% a year. Well, there's another version of wealth tax where people pay 1% of their total assets, including property, on everything over £4 million a year, and that would yield around £130 billion a year, enough to close a large part of that gap to the higher level 3 basic income in the report of nearly £1,000 a month. And that wealth tax is crucial, I think. Firstly, if we ever get the political support to implement a proper UBI, we'll also have the political support to implement a wealth tax. And taxing land and real estate is easy. You can't hide it in a bank vault. It's also important because it brings productive assets into use rather than them being hoarded, and it counteracts asset bubbles. Higher property prices mean higher housing costs, which are a major component of both poverty and inequality. So it's possible, but it is a political choice that will upset some people, primarily rich people. What do we get in return? Poverty would be eliminated overnight. There would be no sanctions regime, no food banks. Every family would have a real safety net. Economic power would shift to working people. Bad employment would end. Intervention programs would actually work. When you're trying to help people with serious mental health or substance abuse problems at the moment, it's a treadmill because they are so poor they are hyper vulnerable. Basic income would give them some stability. Crime would fall. The single biggest determinant of healthy life expectancy isn't diet. It isn't exercise either. It's money. One trial of basic income showed a 27% reduction in illness. It would save the NHS a fortune and reduce the number of sick days. Mental ill health costs us £118 billion a year. Obesity costs us £50 billion a year. You'd have to avoid an economic shock, so you'd phase a universal basic income in. We'd need rent controls to stop profiteering. But we need that anyway. And then there's the long-term benefits. We could shift away from a consumerist mindset and invest in public luxury. We could tax environmentally damaging consumption and spend the extra income on leisure. Libraries with proper computer suites, publicly owned gardens and swimming pools and exercise classes, more live music and performance art because people would have the disposable income to pay for them. We could shift away from private cars and at the same time provide better public transport. In the 1870s, the government brought in free compulsory primary education. That liberation of children from low-value work is the foundation of our modern economy. It was a revolutionary policy. In 1948 we created the National Health Service, free at the point of delivery, funded by general taxation, based on clinical need, not ability to pay, universal, for everyone. Those who opposed it said the sky would fall in. They were wrong. When Labour brought in the minimum wage, the free market economists said it would cause mass unemployment. They were wrong. Our economic system has broken. We've got a government carrying out live experiments on our country, derailing the mortgage system, crashing the pound, cutting public services and punishing people for being poor. We need a safety net that works. Every business I talk to tells me what they need for growth are not tax cuts, but more skilled workers. UBI gives people the freedom and the agency to increase their skills and earning potential and escape the poverty trap of low-paid work. Until we give people the freedom to take control of their own futures, we'll be plagued with low skills, ill health and a low growth economy. And let's not undervalue the power of dignity. Imagine a society where everyone groups secure, aware of their own potential and feeling that society is a collective endeavour and not every man for himself. It will be a different era. The rich have had free income forever. It's time to crash that party. It's time everyone had a universal basic income.